IP address provides an identity to your network device. So what does it reveal about you? Your IP address can show the country, region, and city from which you connect to the internet in real time. Using IP address lookups, anyone can get details such as your internet service provider or host name. Why is that important? Combining your online activity and IP location data allows snoopers to get a profile of who's accessing the internet from that specific IP address. Your internet service provider can check and log your browsing history. It means authorities can get all personal details about any internet user, including name, address, phone number, and credit card details upon request. Associating your IP address with your online activity provides advertisers with insights about your ad preferences so that brands can serve you highly targeted ads. We're introducing threat protection to offer you even more comprehensive security against cyber threats. Block tracks intrusive and malicious ads, steer away from harmful websites and files. Sign up today at nordvpn.com/Mark Felton and enter the promo code Mark Felton. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Dwight D. Eisenhower was the most senior Allied general in the European theatre of operations. In July 1944, a 4-star general, holding the post of Supreme Allied Commander, Allied Expeditionary Force, or SHAEF. As such, he oversaw and coordinated the entire Allied effort in northwest Europe from before the D-Day landings in June 1944 to the final German surrender in May 1945. It was a difficult job that he handled well, as it involved balancing the often competing interests of not only American forces, but those of the other major Allied powers in the Northwest European campaign, the British, Canadians, and French. His strategies and decisions have been dissected and criticized in the decades since, but it is generally accepted that Eisenhower did a good job in managing to keep together the Allied coalition, handling not only all the practical military difficulties, but also handling the very big personalities of some of his pushy subordinates, such as US General George S. Patton and British Field Marshal Sir Bernard Montgomery, not to mention his political masters, President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill. Eisenhower worked closely with his British deputy, Air Chief Marshal Sir Arthur Tedder, and SHAEF as an organisation ran remarkably smoothly. So it's little wonder that Eisenhower was the one person who needed to be well protected and kept away from harm. But unknown to nearly everyone today, General Eisenhower did actually conduct a combat mission during the height of the battle for Normandy, an extremely risky, and some might say foolhardy enterprise. German resistance in Normandy was very stubborn, as Hitler rushed in Panzergrenadier and infantry reinforcements to stop the Allied advance. The Allies facing several weeks of intense and bloody combat through the hedgerows of Normandy before the real breakout into France occurred. The capture of the important crossroads town of Saint-Lô, part of what was called the Battle of the Hedgerows due to the difficult Normandy terrain, was a vital Allied objective. On the 3rd of July 1944, the commanding officer of the 356th Fighter Squadron was unexpectedly summoned to Group Headquarters. Major Richard E. Turner was told that the next day, 4th of July, a special and top-secret mission would occur, his squadron to perform it. Turner was alarmed to hear that Major General Pete Quesada, commanding the 9th Tactical Air Command in Normandy, would arrive on the 4th to fly a P-51 Mustang into action. This in itself was a bit unusual. 3-star generals generally did not fly combat sorties, though Quesada himself had 50 under his belt. But Quesada was to be the pilot for an even bigger fish, Supreme Allied Commander General Eisenhower. Turner was told that the two generals would fly a personal reconnaissance of the Saint-Lô area, preparatory to a major new operation to capture the town. The 356th Fighter Squadron was in possession of a rare 2-seater P-51 Mustang, or rather an old, war-weary fighter that had been modified so that new pilots could have tactics demonstrated and ground crew chiefs could experience joyrides. The fighter had been modified in the field by removing the fuselage fuel tank from behind the cockpit and putting in a seat instead. Turner was told to provide 3 other P-51s and pilots to escort the mission. The distance to Saint-Lô from the airfield was only 12 miles, so Turner estimated the whole mission would last about 30 minutes. To ensure security, the flight's composition made it look like a regular reconnaissance mission, and no mention of their famous passenger was to be uttered over the RT system. But the risks were obvious. German fighters and flak operated throughout the area. Turner was told, perhaps half-jokingly, that if he lost Eisenhower to enemy action, not to come back. If Eisenhower was killed or captured, it would have been an immense blow to Allied morale and a huge boost to the Germans. Eisenhower duly arrived on the 4th of July, greeting all the pilots personally and giving them a little speech, calling them the best fighter pilots in the ETO. Turner recalled that, quote, he was a man of authority and determination, whose manner impressed all those who saw him, end quote. Clambering aboard the old P-51, Turner and the other pilots realized how dangerous this mission was for Eisenhower. Due to the ad hoc modifications on the plane, Eisenhower couldn't wear a parachute, unlike General Quesada piloting the plane. He also couldn't open the jerry-rig canopy, as it was, unlike the regular canopy at the front, screwed shut by a crew chief prior to takeoff. So Eisenhower couldn't bail out, and he couldn't exit the aircraft without outside assistance in the event of a forced landing. Eisenhower, however, was not completely unaware of the risks. He was a qualified pilot himself. He'd soloed in 1937 while serving as a lieutenant colonel in the Philippines under General MacArthur. He'd learned at the age of 46 and was noted by his instructor as a quote-unquote poor pilot. Once Eisenhower was screwed into his tiny cockpit, the 4 P-51s lifted off and climbed to 5,000 feet. Unfortunately, due to a technical issue with his engine, Major Turner had to pull away and return to the airfield. Eisenhower managed to get a good look at the bombed ruins of San Lo and the surrounding area, the trio of aircraft not seeing any German planes. The planes returned safely to the airfield some 30 minutes after liftoff. Eisenhower had enjoyed the experience immensely, and for the Allied Supreme Commander to have flown in broad daylight into hotly contested enemy-held territory was evidently a thrilling experience. It was the first time in history that a ground general had undertaken such a mission. After Eisenhower departed, the plane was renamed the Stars Look Down. Eisenhower would go on to be elected the 34th President of the United States, in office between 1953 and 1961, a time of unprecedented economic prosperity for Americans, and he remains well regarded today. He died in 1969 at the age of 78. I'll leave the final words to General Eisenhower himself.
I have the proud privilege of speaking for a victorious army of almost 5 million fighting men. They, and the women who have so ably assisted them, constitute the Allied expeditionary forces that have liberated Western Europe. They have captured or destroyed enemy armies totaling more than their own strength. Merely to name my principal subordinates in the Canadian, French, American, and British forces is to present a picture of the utmost in efficiency, skill, loyalty, and devotion to duty. The United Nations will gratefully remember Tedder, Montgomery, Spaatz, Bradley, Lillat, Creer, and many others. But all these agree with me in the selection of the truly heroic figure of this war. He is G.I. Joe and his counterpart in the air, the Navy, and the merchant marine of every one of the United Nations. He has braved the dangers of U-boat infested seas. He has surmounted charges into desperately defended beaches. He has fought his tedious, patient way through the ultimate in fortified zones. He has endured cold, hunger, fatigue. His companion has been danger. Death has dogged his footsteps. He and his platoon commanders have given us an example of loyalty, devotion to duty, and indomitable courage that will live in our hearts as long as we admire those qualities in men.
Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels, PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.